in what you guys have been doing at PAC. So I want to move into that a little bit. You took all this industry experience that you learned from your first company, then started working in these various positions throughout the industry to give you a more holistic view. Now you start PAC, which was 8 months ago, 9 months ago,
Almost a year and a half ago,
a
actually.
year and a half.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so almost under 2 years ago, but still you've had some time in it. Why did you decide to throw your hat back in the ring into the bigger pond, right? Into the company side again instead of just moving around in these different positions.
Yeah, after my first company, I still was in that operational mindset. I mean, I'd helped grow that public adjusting company. By the time I exited there, I was a COO. Before that, I was business development, director of business development. So I helped grow them from 3 million to over 15 million in revenue a year. And then when I worked with the restoration company, I helped them scale as well. Same kind of thing. I came in as a COO. And I just kind of I thought I was like, you know what? I have kids now. And I get pretty zoned in. Like I can work 80 hours a week and it's not a problem. It's a
Mm,
problem when you have kids. And I wasn't finding that balance. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to try the corporate life. And that's when I went into ABC and I realized there pretty quickly that the
not the
ABC's
path for
awesome.
you.
It's an awesome company. I met so many good people there. The leadership there is great. If you don't know the story of ABC Supply and how that company is built, it is an awesome story.
Yeah.
Still privately held.
Yep.
It just wasn't my cup of tea. And my partner now worked at ABC and we sat in the
Oh,
same
nice.
office. And he, I still nowhere did I ever think I was going to open another roofing company, but he had told me that in maybe 2, 3 years time, he wanted to start one. So I was like, just ask me whatever you want. I've been there. It's been a while at this point, but I think I have a pretty good wealth of knowledge. So we were talking about it a lot. Um, and then finally, when I decided that I was going to leave and start a company, um, he was kind of the first person I told after my manager, and I gave my manager quite a bit of time so that he could find a replacement. And so not a lot of people knew at first. Tyler, my partner, was the first that I told. And then when I left, I was like, hey man, if you ever really decide you wanted to come onto that side, just call me. And it wasn't very long after that. And I wasn't too far down the road. And so we just pretty immediately made it a partnership. We had learned just through talking about
Hmm.
stuff that we were pretty aligned in how we wanted to do things. So, but honestly, it was those conversations with Tyler that kind of started getting that thought back into my head.
For sure. For sure. So when you started, you wanted, obviously, you had a lot of things like you said in hindsight, right? In hindsight, looking back, you would have done things differently in the first one and built these different sales channels that would have been a little bit more sustainable, a little bit more operationally. I mean, you guys were operationally efficient, but it was very heavily relied on one variable that you really had no control over, right? One thing that I've learned about you guys and what Ethan has told me is you guys have taken that and almost flipped it on its head, right? You guys are heavily involved in retail now, as what I understand, and you serve a lot of the Front Range, but also the mountain area in Colorado, which has typically a much higher population of wealthy individuals with large houses, custom projects, large builds, things like that. So take me through the thought process of, okay, I learned all this stuff in the industry. I'm in partnership with this guy, Tyler. We're going to do it the right way this time. What is the thought process there? How did you go about saying, okay, here's the market we're going to define. Here's how we're going to do things differently. Here's how we're going to set ourselves apart from just the, you know, 40 million other roofing companies that are in Colorado. How did that come about?
Yeah, I'd learned the first time around that it's very easy to fall into the the storm trap here in Colorado.
Yeah.
Um, once you kind of go down that path, at least my experience, where it's kind of an on-demand revenue stream when it's there. You knock a door, and if someone's interested and you get them to file a claim, I mean, it's immediate revenue, right? It's immediate success.
Yeah.
And so you kind of get into this place where oh, revenue's not coming in. We need to go knock doors. And that's just where you default. And then in the winter, and I saw this a lot because with the public adjusting company, with ABC Supply, I'm selling to contractors, right? So I'm sitting in their offices and I'm getting to know these owners and I'm seeing how people do things, whether it's the same, different. And I saw the same pattern all the time that we would go through. In the winter, we would go, we're going to set something up different so that we're not, relying on a storm. And we'd kind of get some stuff in place and then a storm would hit. And it's like, well, we're not going to not go do that. And then now your whole year, 18 months is absorbed by, making sure you get a piece of the buffet that just opened, right?
Right.
And so when we started this one, it's a very disciplined approach of we are setting some very strict boundaries for ourselves that we are a retail first company. All of our forecasting, all of our pro forma, everything that we're planning for is built on retail. So if we're trying to do, 3 million in 2026, we're doing that understanding or with the possibility that no storm is hitting here at all. And if a storm hits, there's even sort of a gatekeeping uh, understanding that we have of, we're going to obviously do some work in there in the storm, but we're not going to completely change the identity of who we are based on that storm. And even the claims process we're running in a very unique way, a more retail style way. We're involving the homeowner a little bit more than what most contractors do, which I think is where the market's going to have to shift, just with different laws and stuff that are being put in place that are not allowing contractors to legally negotiate claims and stuff. It's really kind of to the homeowner's benefit anymore, in my opinion, for them to be involved in the communications a little bit so they know what's going on and they're the insurance carrier's customers. So there's a lot of power in that and it makes the process quite a bit smoother. So really it's just more, I think there's more entrepreneurial or business owner maturity there to know, hey, if a storm hits this year, we might be giving up 8 million in revenue to be at 4, knowing though that 3 years from now, we're not going to be doing this with storms and we're going to be built on a foundation of not relying on that. So that's where the mountains were a great opportunity for us. The mountains are difficult logistically. The projects are a lot more complex. You can't just be your run-of-the-mill asphalt roofer. A lot of these projects have flat, have metal, have, synthetic composite. They have different products that you have to kind of tie into one another, which is a little bit tricky for most Colorado roofers because they're so used to the how many asphalt shingle roofs can we do in a storm? It's just a rinse and repeat.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I feel like I'm blabbering at this point, but
No. This is exactly what
uh,
we're trying to hear. No, this is great.
yeah, I think it's just a discipline to know.
Yeah.
There's an advantage in being low overhead, new, where you can sort of say we're not gonna go to the buffet where all that money is right now
Right.
immediately because we don't necessarily have to.
Right.
Um, but as soon as we do, we just turned ourselves up into this, higher overhead model that now we have to tear back down. And so there's a benefit there. You just got to stay disciplined in what you're doing and just make sure you don't lose your identity in the process of a storm coming through.
Yeah, 100%. And it sounds like a lot of what you're doing is you're building the brand, right? At the end of the day. Like you're not going in and chasing these storms and develop or like allocating a huge amount of resources to these storms because you know that 3 years down the road, you want to be the brand that's really heavily retail focused, that does a lot of these custom jobs, that has a lot of this word of mouth referral based marketing going on in that very niche type community of these homeowners or these businesses in the mountains, right? Which is awesome because like you think of traditional Colorado roofing, that's like the opposite of what everyone else does. And so I
Yeah.
think that you've taken a lot of that experience that you learned from the first couple of companies, from the first company and then your couple of positions, um, of how to do that the right way, right? Because there's a lot of people that try that, but then get stuck in that loop of like, okay, well, when a storm hits, we'll obviously go and do our thing, and then but when they don't hit, we're going to be only focused on this, and they kind of get stuck in this back and forth of because it's two very different operating models and it's two very different ways of doing business. Um, and it works if you have a big enough company with enough resources, enough capital, you can do both. Like you can very easily have a department that focuses on one or the other. But when you're smaller, like you said, and have a low overhead, you're allocating a huge amount of company time towards something that, like you said, 3 years down the road is going to put you in the same spot that you were before. So I love to see that, and I think it's so fascinating how you guys focus so much on the mountain range. And I would love to hear more about why that was a choice and why that was like, yeah, we want to focus westward instead of along the front range and east, which most people do in Colorado. Because when I used to sell seamless gutter, I would always get really excited when we had a mountain project because I knew that was going to be a big fat check. I knew that that was going to be a nice large job that we could do because people would be building pole barns up in the mountains, or they'd have this ranch that they had this whole new property developed and do that. It's this whole thing. And so I would always love that. And I always like driving the mountains too. But tell me about why the mountain ranges, why West Colorado instead of kind of the traditional front range eastward, and why do you see that as kind of a benefit over operational complexity, like you said?
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons. Tyler grew up in the mountains. He's originally from Oklahoma, but he moved into Kremling when he was in high school. So he's got a lot of relationships and understanding of up there, and just his heart's kind of there. I think he probably will probably relocate up there at some point while I stay down here. Um, a big part of it is there's just the retail market down here in Denver is still kind of developing because even homeowners, most of them, they're like, I'm just going to wait for hail, you know?
Yeah.
That's changing now because coverages that insurance companies are offering now, like most of them have a pretty decent out of pocket even in a hailstorm now. And so it is shifting into a retail space. Um, and I think it's probably going to become that here in the next decade, almost uh, not fully, but it's going to be more retail. It's going to be a lot less. The guys that are just relying on storms, I think, are probably going to figure out that they need to change or they're not going to make it.
Yeah.
And so the mountains it's really all retail. And so it's an opportunity for us to figure that out and what that looks like and how that model is different without the noise of potential hail work, right? We're going up there specifically to be competitive, but still learn how to turn a good profit in a competitive market and what that looks like and how we position financing offers and stuff in there to help it make it affordable for different types of buyers um, and then as Denver transitions more to retail, I think we'll have that muscle and then we'll kind of grow as the Denver market grows into retail. That's at least our, you know, uh, dream of how we're thinking about it. But then also, a lot of the homes up there are, they're second, third, fourth homes.
Yeah.
Um, and the ones that aren't, the ones that's their primary residence, they've been up there for a really long time.
Yeah.
Property values have increased a lot, so they have equity.
Right.
So the liquidity is there for these jobs.
Yeah.
Um, and what's great about retail that I didn't understand the first go round is, it's great to make really good margins on an insurance claim on paper, but when you're waiting months for money, uh, and if you don't understand how much a poor cash flow position costs you, and
Oh my
it's
God.
it's a huge business cost that you don't
Yeah.
really compute because it's not just a set number, right?